Today we're going to be talking about the assumptions that were blocking me from love and how I changed them. So the law of assumption by Neville Goddard. What does that mean? It basically means that your assumptions that you have, both consciously and unconscious, those assumptions are going to run your life. You give those assumptions permission and consent to be true about you, about life, about how other people treat you. And that truth can either help you create the life you love, or as you'll see as this video progresses, they created my worst fears. Ideally, your assumptions, conscious and unconscious, fortify the self-concept of you that's abundant, that's successful, that's loved and valued. But what happens when that's not the case? And more specifically, what happens when it comes to love when that's not the case? Well, this brings us to my first assumption that was blocking love. My name is Abby and welcome to this video. Before we get into it, I want to let you know that if you're interested in uprooting your unconscious assumptions and beliefs, I'm offering one-on-one sessions, and it's a donation-based payment system, meaning that there's a $30 minimum payment. If you want to donate more to the channel, you can, and the tip option. Either way, we're going to work together in a Skype or Zoom session. We can start uprooting whatever it is that's blocking you or holding you back. If that resonates, if you're interested, follow the link below in the description. So let's get back to the video. The first assumption that was blocking me from attracting or manifesting love was that I wasn't good enough on my own. I needed to do something so that I could have that connection, and I needed to earn the relationship. So how was that assumption showing itself in my behavior? It led me to think that I needed to help or fix or be the rescuer. So if somebody had a big need in their life, well, if I could fix it or if I could solve it, then I would have a place in their life, and basically then they would be less likely to abandon me or leave me. I was assuming that not doing this would basically mean I would be alone. If I could be that hero, if I could be that problem solver, then I could have the relationship. Then I would be enough. The assumption was I couldn't be just me and be in a relationship. In my past, that assumption showed itself in perpetually attracting people who were victims or victim mindset, people who needed something, who needed help, who had a big issue. And they happened to be also emotionally unavailable because they had this big situation or this issue or this stress in their life. Most of their focus was on that for their own sense of safety. No one did anything bad or wrong in this. However, the dynamics and the way I saw myself, the way they saw themselves, and how those dynamics played together. So since they needed me, it wasn't about who I was, it was about what I did. So you can see here that what I was assuming to be true, that it wasn't me, it was what I did. I found people who needed the help, not me. So therefore, in my perspective, oh look, it's right, it's true. I'm giving it permission and consent to be true. And again, I kept finding emotionally unavailable people because ultimately I was emotionally unavailable to myself. Everyone is your beliefs about yourself pushed out, or you could say everyone is your assumptions about yourself pushed out. And you can see in this dynamic, it wasn't who I was, it was what I did, and they saw it's not who you are, it's what you can do for me because I need a sense of safety. They're acting out their own wounds, their own assumptions, but those two line up. Obviously, this kind of situation did not provide the reliable, safe connection I was looking for. As I became more aware of this dynamic, I started to see, oh, I can never earn love, nor do I need to work for a connection. As I started to change the assumption that I am enough and I am worthy to be loved as I am, not because of what I do, but because of who I am, I began to move that way in the world and change the dynamic, and so I saw that reflected in my life. And this brings us to the second assumption that I unconsciously had that was blocking me from relationships, and that is, with that relationship, I would feel better about myself. Life would be more worth living, that things would be more exciting, and that I would have more if I had this relationship. And that led to me getting really desperate, trying to hang on to situations, trying to make it work, basically also taking on more than was my share, trying to go out of my way so that this person, basically in a manipulative way, I would try to get them to see me in a certain way so they wouldn't leave, because I needed this relationship to feel whole and complete, to feel like life was good. And without it, that was not the feeling for me. I would become desperate to keep it because what's the underlying assumption? That without this relationship, I am less without it. So I was desperate. I would try to hang on to keep it at all costs. No matter how I felt about the person, no matter if I was happy or not, I would be willing to get dragged through the dirt and do whatever was necessary in order to salvage that relationship. In hindsight, I actually never stopped to ask, do I like this person? Do I really want to be with them? I would see it as, okay, this person likes me enough to be in a relationship, so I better work hard. I'll go and I'll be willing to do the nice things or the sweet things, or how will they see me in a better way? What is going to be more likely that they won't leave? And everything became about their world, how they saw me. And I completely disregarded what my experience was because I was so desperate, because my perception, my assumption was that without them I am less, so I need to keep them. I assumed that if I had that relationship, I would feel loved, I would feel good. If I could get this person to commit to me, then I would feel safe, then I would feel valued. But the truth of it all was that that relationship was really mirroring me. Them being unavailable and not wanting to commit to me echoed what I was doing to myself, leaving me to go into their world so that maybe they would see me in a higher light, so I would feel better about myself, disregarding and rejecting myself. As I began to see this, I began to see, wow, if I'm not going to value myself, if I'm not going to prioritize myself, how can I ever see that reflected back to me? All I'll find is people who echo back that they don't value me because I wasn't, and that they don't prioritize me because I wasn't. Remember earlier when I said it didn't matter what my experience was, it was only about them? Well, I got people who it was never about me, it was always about them, or so I perceived. So I assumed that that's how I was to be treated. As I began to listen to my needs, what would make me feel safe and valued, I began to do that first to myself, with myself, build that relationship, and ultimately I saw that reflected in my outside world. And this brings us to the third assumption that I had about myself that was blocking me from manifesting love, and that is that I could not express my needs or that other person would leave. I thought this was truth. I thought that if I shared what I really needed, what I really wanted, what was important to me, that person would leave. That I couldn't be me totally, authentically, and be in the relationship. I was so used to going to other people's worlds, and I thought, oh, okay, in order to be in a relationship, I have to put my needs aside. I have to put my true self over there so I can go where they are, because no one wants to come and connect with me. And what did this look like? This looked like me being a people pleaser. What's that? Of course I will. Yeah, you need that thing? Oh, you forgot your lunch? Oh, I'll go over there and go out of my way. Oh, those things I have in my life, those priorities or obligations and responsibilities I have, I can put them on the side as long as I might be seen in a better light, or I might have a better chance to be loved or accepted or valued in this person's eyes. I am willing to do it all. Saying yes to them, but I didn't realize at the time I was saying no to me so many times. Not always does it mean a yes to somebody else is a no to you. Sometimes a yes to somebody else is a yes to you. But I wasn't stopping to ask, is it a yes for me? And so often it was a no for me so that I could say yes to them. People pleasing times 10. Also codependent. I didn't understand that I could be me, and maybe sometimes people would be upset with that. Maybe other times people didn't understand it. But I would try to edit and contort myself so I wouldn't upset other people. And if they were upset, then I was upset, right? No differentiation about them and me. So again, I had to go to their world. I couldn't have my needs and be authentically me, or so I assumed. So I ended up creating a false version of myself, or potentially multiple false versions of myself, depending on what situation I was in. This, obviously, I'd already talked about how desperate I was because I wanted that reliable, safe connection, and I assumed that this is what you do in order to get it. What I wasn't seeing is when I created this false sense of me, essentially this empty container, right? Oh, I'm going to put this thing, whatever you want me to be, but it's empty. It's not me in there. I would leave me to create this. The other person would then try to connect to this. Who's connecting to me? Nobody. So all those no's, all that sacrifice, it didn't even end up in the way and the intention that I wanted it. I had to see the more I was creating false versions of myself, the more I was cutting myself off from the opportunity of authentically being seen, what I so crave to be authentically loved, connected with, and valued. And in that assumption, since I was rejecting myself and saying, no, it's not good, you can't be yourself, I would attract people who would then be that belief of myself. Everyone is your beliefs, everyone is your assumptions pushed out. So I would get people who would reject me and do the same thing that I was believing to be true. I can't be me and be in the relationship. I'm going to reject me. And what did I feel from them? That rejection. I was sacrificing so many things, so many resources, and really myself, that it wasn't sustainable. I actually felt more lonely so often in relationships than I did alone because I rejected myself. I abandoned myself to be in the relationship. So they weren't connecting with me and I wasn't connected with me. So I really felt so lonely, even though someone was there. As I started understanding this and started to see that the way to stay safe, the way to get the connection that I want is to have that connection with myself by expressing my needs, by valuing, prioritizing what it is I need and sharing that and realizing if that person does have space for this, that's good. They don't have space for me and that situation's too small for me. They're not bad. They're not anything negative, but I need emotional environment that's bigger than that can hold all of these things. As I started to see that expressing my needs is what helps keep me safe and allows me to attract others who want to expand that sense of safety. And ultimately, I was able to find in my outside world that same connection that I had with myself. They want to know my needs and they want to meet those needs. Becoming aware of these assumptions that were blocking me helped me to change my entire relationship and dynamic with love. I began to replace those assumptions with assumptions that valued me, that loved me, and accepted me wholeheartedly. The wonderful, the stubborn, the short-tempered, the imperfect, all the parts of me, not just some, realizing as I embraced the totality of who I am, I was able to attract a loving, safe, reliable relationship that celebrates that connection I have with myself and also reflects that relationship dynamic back to me. It's a relationship dynamic that I'd never experienced before, and I honestly didn't know it existed. It only was possible as I began to become aware of what it is that I actually felt about love and bring that to my conscious awareness. Neville Goddard says awareness is like a light in a dark room. You want to be aware. And Carl Jung said, until you make conscious what is unconscious, it will continue to drive your behavior and you'll call it fate. That's at least a paraphrase. I forget the exact thing. I always try to remember. I hope that this video gives you more understanding of how you can start implementing this strategy, this technique, these powerful shifts so that you can start experiencing the love dynamic that you deserve and that you are worth. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, click that like below. It always delights me and it really helps to spread this information to those who need to see it. If you haven't done so already, get on over here and join this community, join this family. We would love to have you. And if you really like this video, I'm going to recommend this one next. It's all about how to stop chasing validation. I love y'all and I'll see you on the next one.